Hi, so I'm going to continue with the advanced word and we're using the lecture materials. We're still in week 2 and we're going to cover the document setup and the tables next. We've already done these 2 in the previous video. So the video is the second series in the week 2. So if we open up the document setup folder, make sure you have got the same sort of things as I have. Open up the first one and we're going to look at how we can do different header sections. Normally when we've done headers in the past, if you've done ICDL with us or if you do a dissertation or something, you want to put your name, file name, etc. on every single header, then you do it in the first header, don't you? And then normally it comes out. You click away, double click out of the document, you can see that that header is in every page. So what we're going to do in Word is we're going to think about some different things that we can do, how we can do different things to different areas. And if we look at the blurb just at the beginning of here, you can see that in Word you can actually do different things about the page layout, about the numbering, about using sections. Do you remember previous video, if you did do that with me, you've got this section on the status bar here. Section 1, do you remember how we brought it up? Right click on the status bar and then you can click on sections. And you can go to, so if you do Control and G and you go to a section, you can find a section, clicking through, go to and close, and this is section 3. So you can see that that's a really quick way of going around. I know a lot of you use Control G and use the paging, page numbering, and you can do this in a test as well to take you somewhere really quickly. So there's many sections that can appear in a document. We're going to have a little look at some of them, and you've got some things here about margins, vertical alignment, headers and footers, columns. So we're going to look at all of that. Portrait landscape's another thing. So the first thing we're going to do is going to look at this show and hide feature here. So the show paragraph marks and other hidden formatting symbols, and this will tell us what's going on in the back of the document. So the paragraph marks are obviously your enters, your returns, carriages, and then you've got your dots for spaces. And then you'll see things like a section break for next page. We can scroll down, a section break for next page. So in the layout tab at the top here, we have these breaks. Section breaks are a bit different to page breaks. Page breaks completely break that page from the previous one. Section breaks mean that you can do different things to different text within those sections. You could change the margins on one page if you section it off. You could change the orientation on a page if you section it off, which would be really good if you had a diagram in your dissertation and you wanted to do it on a landscape page. So you can section things off and do different things. So let's explore that together and have a look at that. So the first thing we're going to do is we go to the very first page. You can see if I bring this down that this is sort of at the top of the page. A little bit too down, I think, for you. Let's see if we can get that a little bit better. That's it. So you can see that it's towards the top of the page. We know it's got a section in it, and I click within the section. You can see it's on section 1. You can see my cursors there. And I'm going to use something called vertical alignment. This is something that you'd use on your cover page. We'll have another look at it in a moment, but just quickly, just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to vertically align this centrally in the middle of that document paper, that sheet. So I'm going to go into page or layout, used to be page layout. Make sure go into the launcher area, and then it's how it's laid out on the page. Always remember that, helps you get to the next tab. And then you can see the vertical alignment, one of the syllabus areas within the document setup. Drop that down to center. That means we're going to move it from the top towards the center of the document. It's applying to this section only because remember, I made sure that my cursor was in that section here and it showed in section 1 there. So if I OK, that then drops down and is now vertically aligned. If you didn't have that section break there, then it would vertically align the whole document and you would see it whoosh in front of you and you definitely notice there was something very odd about it. Okay, so be really careful in the exam that you only apply it to a particular section. Another thing we can do is we talked about putting sections in and isolating a page. So we've got section 2 here. You can see there's section there. We've got page 2 of 6. So we're in the section 2. And we can isolate this to be a diagram page, like could be our orientation in landscape. So if we move to the landscape and apply it, that page now could be used for a diagram, couldn't it? It's been sectioned off using this, the one in front as well. And guess what? There's another one there. So it's isolated it. If we look at section 3, the next one, we could change the margins on this. So you could go to the margins, custom margins, and you can make that, let's make it 5 at the top, so you can see it clearly. Notice it's on this section again. There are other options, but just be aware that this is this section for the exam. Okay, and notice how that one has a big margin, but others don't. Hasn't applied. That one's centralized vertically, okay? So you can see how you can do different things in different sections. Another thing we can do is if you double click into the header and type your name, then you're obviously going to see it on the next page and the next page. What if you don't want to see it on the next page? So we want something in here, but we don't want it to follow on to the next. So if we go to page 2 and we click on there, watch this feature here called Link to Previous. And this is how it links to the next page and the next page, so you get that same consistency of the name appearing on every page. So when I highlight this Stephanie here, Link to Previous lights up. I can now break that link by selecting it, and it's no longer linked to the first page, so I can go back and change that to my second name. Notice when you go back, that still stayed as Stephanie, and the ones that follow it stayed as Stephanie. So we want to break that link again between page 2 and 3. So go to page 3 because it's talking about linking to previous. Watch it light up. There it is. Break the link. Go to page 2 and change it to whatever you want. Computer. Doesn't really matter. Just so that you can see it work. Then when you go down, that stays on Stephanie, and that's changed. And then you could go on and on and on. Now this would be unusual. Some people do put chapter headings in their headers, but that can get tricky. Just be careful how you use it. But it is worth knowing that you can break these sequences in headers and footers. Let's close that document. I'm not going to save it. And let's have a look at this second one called different section numbering. This is an area in the exam that's more than likely going to come up. So we're thinking about this linking to previous again. If we apply it to our dissertations, we're thinking about when we want to change from Roman numerals and go into pagination of 1, 2, 3. So you can break the sequence between the two. But remember, sections play a role in this. Otherwise, if you haven't got sections, you can't do things. So we double click on this one here and go into the footer. If we were asked to put in some page numbers that are center aligned, and we want them to, let's pop that in, we want them in there, center aligned, but we don't want a page number on page 1, so this could be your cover page, so you don't want it on there. We're not going to use this feature, different first page. We're going to use the link into previous to do this. It's much more professional. And the reason we're going to do that is we want to make page 2 become the first page, so that would become 1. So what we're doing is we're putting in pagination numbers, center aligned. We're going to remove the 1 and we're going to change the 2 to start at 1. So it should run then through to the next one and the next one. So how do we do that? Remember, we've got to go to the second page so that we break the link to the first one. So we click on the 2 and notice that when you do the link to previous lights up, you break the link by clicking on it, go to the page 1, and you now can delete it without affecting page 2, no longer linked. Go back to page 2 and you can right click and reformat it using that way. Or you can go back to the way you used earlier through the design tab here that comes up when we get into the footer. And you can drop that down and you can use the format page numbers that way. Either way works. Click in the start at, it automatically goes on to 1. We're happy with that. You could change it if necessary. Click on 1, Now there is no number on page 1, but there are numbers 1, 2, 3, etc. on the other pages. So let's just close that down. I'll save, and I'm going to just do that one more time. So let's open it together. If you've got yours still open, you haven't done it, or you're just watching me, that's fine. So I've gone in, I've double clicked into the footer. Notice the design tab comes up, which gives me my option for page numbers. I'm going to drop a page number at the bottom of the document, that's where I am, and center it. So there it is. I'm going to break the link between the 2 and the 1. So I'm going to page 2, click on the 2, notice the link to previous light up, break the link by clicking it, go to page 1, delete the 1, and then go back to page 2, right click, and format page numbers to start at 1. And there you've done. Okay, so that's one way. Take the show and hide off. You can see that's how you can do it. If you've got a cover page, that would be really useful. And then if you were going on to change the pagination, you just make sure you break the link to previous. If we go into here, see if we can break the link to previous. Okay, and then if I start, I format that to be that. You can see that now that has started, but obviously you do it the other way around when you're in your dissertation, but it's really good to know how to take those sections out. So I'm just going to close that. Do save. And we're just going to have another quick look at the vertical alignment that we did. So if you get a question, they ask you to centrally align something vertically, or vertically centrally align something. Remember, you need to have your sections on. If you haven't, you can right click and pop it on. You need to put your cursor in that section. You could click on the picture, you could click on there, as long as it's in the section. You come down here and click there. Is it in the section anymore? Still in section 1. That's okay. So we're still there. So this is the one that's going to be vertically aligned. So we'll go to layout, remember. Think about how it's laid out on the page. Click in there. Bring up your page setup. Click on layout. And we're going to do centrally aligned to this section only. We're not going to do it to the whole document. OK it through. And then you can see that it's slightly aligned. If you take out picture, let's just use the show and hide and let's see what's going on. Here we go. Centrally aligned, you can see it's quite very much in the middle. Okay, so let's close that. Remember that one for the exam, quite common. The next one we're going to look at is our columns, because columns take a different way of wrapping and then in sections, and you have to section things off when you've got wrapping across the page in the normal format and wrapping in a column. And that example, if you look here, is that if you've got a section between your heading, your main heading, and your text, what will happen is if I highlight the text, in the exam it may say the whole text or it may say some of the text. So let's do the whole text for starters. So they said the whole document, I would not use Control and A, because if I use Control and A, I'm going to include the heading. So let's make this into columns. So it's in the layout tab and your columns drop down is there. Always go into the more columns, because you'll see in the test, in the revision questions that we're going to do, they usually want 2 columns and then they want some other extra bits. So they may change the spacing. They may want 1.5 spacing. Equal width, that's on by default. That's fine, so we're not going to be changing the width. A line between is another thing they ask for. So really be aware of all those little bits of detail. Click on OK, and then you can see that it's done it. If I take this out and delete it, and then again, do you see how that gets incorporated into the text that's columned? So you have to be really, really careful. If you've got a nice clean sweep across there using a section break, continuous section break, It means that it's still on the same page, but there's something going on here that's different to what's going on there. So you'll see columns, if you haven't sectioned it properly, you'll see columns starting and running all over the place and you can't keep control of them. And another thing they may ask in the exam is to use a column break. So if we place our cursor in front of dog eats 8.4 million winning lottery ticket, wow, kill it, wouldn't you? It would be very, very cross. Pop that in, break, column break, there it is. And you can see that it brings it up beautifully in line with the other one. Okay, so that's a proper column break that's been incorporated. When you're showing highs not on there, you won't see that anyway. You have no idea what somebody's done, but it looks great. It looks fantastic. Remember what I said in the test, you could be asked to just do a certain amount of, so it might say the first 4 paragraphs and leave the last one out. So only apply to what they ask you to apply it to. And column 2 might take the spacing might be 1.3, line between. Okay, and there you go, and you can see you've still got that one down here that's not been incorporated. And if you put in a column break, still left that out. Okay, so be aware of that as columns. Nice and simple, it's just about a bit of detail. Let's close that and let's have a look at the final bit on here, which is watermark. Now, watermarks are very easy to do. If you're in the exam, they will ask you to do a watermark and ensure that it's automatically inserted on a new page. So that's the thing we need to watch. So if we go into layout or design, actually moved it into design right next to layout. So layout's where you get your columns, and right next door design's where we get our watermark. And the thing about the word exam is the more you know where something is, even if you click around like I did a little bit there, it's fine, it won't penalise you in the exam. But if you start clicking everywhere looking for things over and over and over on each question, you'll find that you're up against time. So your time is the essence. And if you waste time, then it will catch up with you, unfortunately. So try to remember as much as you can as to where something is. The key thing when you're applying a custom watermark to something where it automatically applies to a new page, you use the custom watermark, which is why I'm hovering on there. So you bring that up, the dialog box, then you apply the different things they may be asking you to do. So it's usually a text watermark. You've got drop down here as to which one. We'll put do not copy. I'm going to do it in red just so it stands out for you, and they may ask you to do it diagonal or horizontal. Then you apply and then you close, and as you can see, there it is. If we put in a new page, Control and Enter, just check, and then yes, because it's custom watermark, it's worked. Just out of interest as well, if we go back to watermark, custom watermark, we can actually overtype that, and you can put in your name. And you can have a personalised watermark. There we go, Stephanie, Director. Another little trick that won't come up in the exam, but it's quite useful. If you double click into a header of a document and you've got a logo or an image that you want in the back of your document, you can pop it in through the header. So just as an exercise, going to insert, let's pick up a smiley face from our shapes. Draw it while you're in the header. And what you're doing is sort of dropping it down the back. You can change the colours and things while you're in there if that's what you want to do. It will take it on board. Double click out and you can see that that then becomes a watermark. Double click in. You can click on it. You can make it a lot bigger. So if it was a really good logo, you could pop it into the middle and then double click into the document and it becomes a watermark again. To get it and delete it, in your header, click on it, delete, and back out again. So just a little tip for the real world, but in the exam, remember, it's the custom watermark in the design tab. I've got to remember that one too. Okay, so that's the end of that bit. I'm not going to save. We're going to come out And we're going to have a quick look at tables before we leave this section, this series, if you like, in week 2. So the last part of week 2 lectures is we're going to look at table styles, converting a table to text, sorting, that's simultaneous sorting they call it in Word, which is more than one item being sorted, one criteria, and calculations in tables and table properties. Okay, so if we open up table styles nice and easy. Let's just have a look at tables generally though before we start. So it says about what they are. I think we know that. The beauty of them is that, for example, in CVs and things, you can space everything out beautifully, hide the table with no borders, and it looks like you've been really clever with tabbing, etc. So a great little tool for the back end, if you like. With regard to the exam, there's the usual things. So you've got the merge and split. So obviously on the right, we just highlight, you've got the little black arrow that highlights within, so you can merge a cell. And then you can right click and you can split a cell. And it asks you what you want to split it to. You can highlight the whole row or the column, just like you do in any normal table, and do whatever it is you wish to do. The final bit of this is about the table styles. We highlight the whole of this table, and then the design tab up here on the table tools, you will have some table styles. In the exam, you'll be asked to use particular ones. They'll have names, so you can see that's grid. Just hover on this one. Grid table 3, accent 1, grid table 3, accent 2, and you can see there's a theme going on here. So if you go onto this one, grid table 5, dark, accent 1, accent 2. So they're quite easy to find. There's quite a lot of them. If we apply one, remember you can go back in there, and to clear it, you just click on there and it goes back to the way it was. If you wanted your borders back on, then you can go and do your border styles. Okay, so that's nothing else to that. It's quite straightforward, and that's just a simple table styles area. So we're just going to close this. The next one's converting table to text, so let's open that one up. And this one you're going to highlight the area. Most text before it's converted to a table has to have commas, tabs or paragraph marks to separate it. Remember the tool we used before, the show and hide, if you were with me on some of the other things. Let's bring that up a little bit. And you can see this one's got tabs. So tabs separating the data. So I've highlighted it, go into Insert tab, drop down on Table, and there's your Convert Text to Table feature there. If you hover on it, it'll tell you what it does. Remember in the exam, you can click around a little bit, you can hover on things, you can check what it does, but get to know where things are as much as you can so that you save some time. So Convert Text to Table, got the right number of columns and rows if you've highlighted it correctly, and it's automatically gone onto tabs. So we can OK, and then it's done. Once it's become a table, to convert it back, it's already highlighted. We've got it on the highlight, and you can see that you've got these table tools again. Go on to the layout one, and you've got convert to text. So you can go the other way. So notice when you click on that, it comes up on tabs automatically, and that's the way we want it. And then if we do the show and hide, you can see those tabs are there. So really straightforward. Converting, when you're converting and highlighting text, you'll be doing it through the insert table route. When it's already been converted, then you'll go through the design layout route. Okay, so close that one. The next one's sorting. So they talk about simultaneous sorting in Word, Advanced Word, and it means sorting more than one item. We've done sorting before. You know, normally you click on the surname and you do a sort. There you go, by surname. So sort a surname by surname looks pretty obvious. But you can see what's happened by doing that. I've actually included my total row, which I don't want to do on sort. So let's do things a little bit more professionally and precisely, and let's also do more than one. So there's a couple of ways of doing this. This is the holiday chart. Be careful in the exam because sometimes they'll put tables on top of tables. So make sure if you do all this hard work that you're doing it to the right table. So this is the table we're going to use, and it talks about, there's 19 rows, and it's talking about sorting rows 2 to 17. Well, I've got 2 there, it's pretty obvious. I'm not going to count them because I know it's not going to expect me to involve a total row, a calculation row. It could be budget total, grand total, whatever you want to call it. But it's not going to include that. So if I highlight from row 2 down to there, and I go into the layout tab and the sort, another way of getting there, notice how it comes up with column 1 and then 2, 3, 4. So if I was asked in the exam to sort by surname ascending and then by department, so I'd have to go column 1, column 2, column 3, and that one's descending, and then it wants days holiday 1, 2, 3, 4, and then once that ascending. So I'd be doing it like that. And notice there's nothing about header rows. So if I just cancel that a minute, that's absolutely correct. Let's just OK it. So you can see that I've done the job. I'm just going to undo. Let's look at another way of doing it. Let's include the headings, but not the total row at the bottom. Back in and sort. And notice this time, because I've included the heading rows and it says it knows I've got header rows, it won't incorporate them in the sort, then we can still see them. And it comes up beautifully like this, nice and easy. Don't need to see what's going on the top. OK, and it does the job. So remember, simultaneous sorts, you need to make sure that you can use the headers. The header rows, not a problem. Never include a calculation row at the bottom. Don't worry about counting them because that's what it's going to be. And then go in and do your sort and take your time. Make sure you do your ascending where it's appropriate and descending where it's appropriate, and then OK. Remember, it will look a little bit skewed because it's doing it by priority, the first sort, second sort, and then the last. OK, so that's simultaneous sorting, nice and easy, nothing too much to worry about. Takes on to calculations tables, number 4. So this is where we can use simple calculations within tables in Word. So it's not using Excel. There's lots of oomph there if you want to read it. Basically, we don't use the equal signs. We don't use the cell letters and numbers. We just use a little calculation feature that we can change and adapt to a certain extent. If we were going to put a calculation in here, let's delete that. Let's go to the layout tab, and there's our formula feature. So it's add a formula to a cell to perform a simple calculation such as average, sum, count, probably just count actually. I don't think it's true, we'll have a look. Let's pop in there. This is the different functions that it does. It does do an if, quite a few bits in there actually. People don't use all of it, but it's there. Okay, it comes up with sum automatically. Notice that it uses brackets above, or it could be brackets right, brackets left, brackets below. And it always sort of assumes that I'm going to do what I'm going to do by where I'm placing it. And it's assumed we're doing above. So I'm quite happy to do above. OK there. And that has gone in there. Click on it and it turns grey. Click on that one, it turns grey. Click on that one, it's grey. Click on that, no. So you can see that these grey areas are fields. That's how you know something's a field. And if you right click on them, you will see that they are fields. If you right click on a normal number, you'll get a different pop-up. So if they're fields and the calculations, let's change some figures. So change that, update the field. Let's see what it does, and it adds them all up. Great. However, let's say we want to change the way it looks. Okay, let's say we want to make this into euros because it is in euros. So let's that one's fine for that number, but this one, let's change it because it's in pounds, isn't it? We need it in euros. So let's do a right click on there and edit the field this time, not update. So it takes us into the formula button, it takes us back to where we were. You can see this one's been done with hashtags and a pound sign, and it's doing above. So if we drop that down, we will always stick to the hash areas because it's inputting data. People are inputting data. So you can either have a whole number or decimal places, but we're not going to use the pound. Click on there. Due to these exams being created by Ireland, Southern Ireland, who are in the European Union still, we're going to be putting a euro in here. So we click in front of the hash nice and gently. If you can't get in, you can always move across with your arrow keys. And you're going to use the Alt Great and the number 4 key. People use Control, Alt and 4. There's lots of other ways to do it as well. As long as you get the euro in there, we're quite happy with that. And you can see that it's changed it. We could change the figures. Right click, update and change the figures. Notice down here, there's such thing as locking and unlocking a field. So if a field's locked, let's just see what it's like. So we know that it updated. Let's lock it. So you can see it's unlocked. So if we click on it and use Control F11, we're locking it. Right click on it, it's grayed out. If we're unlocking it, you can guess what it is, as I've just said, Control Shift F11. And now it will update, so it is unlocked. So if it's locked, let's say you came here and it was locked, Control Shift 11, and the exam said change some figures and update the edited field or calculation for total euros with at euro sign. You went to do that and it won't update, then you need to unlock it, Control Shift F11, unlock, do the job by updating it, and then it may ask you to lock it again. So Control Shift is unlock, Control F11 is lock. So just remember, unlocking, you're popping a shift in there, otherwise you're using the Control and F11. Okay, so some good things that you can do, and they're quite useful as long as they're simple and in a Word document. So that's tables calculations. Let's not save. Table properties, this one here. Okay, there's two features here, and I'm going to mention cell margins as well a little bit, just to introduce you to those. So these two features are to do with the table properties of repeating as header row across each page. In other words, the headings that you get on a table that you're printing, these, they will automatically print out on each page so that those people that are looking at your report or documents, they don't need to keep running to the first page to see which data fits with what heading. So those headings will automatically be printed. The second option is to not allow rows to break across the page. So in a dissertation or a long document or a report, it's not good practice to see tables breaking across a page with big gaps. So obviously tables can go across a page, you can have one part of the table there and one part there, but not the cell broken. That's the same cell as that across the page. So these are automatic features we can apply to the document, and then when you're doing your dissertation, it's something you don't have to worry about. You can just assume that it's doing it for you. So the first one is about, as it says, highlighting the first row only. And the problem is that most people will see the question, they're both together, the features are also together in the same place, and they will highlight the whole table and do them both together. Well, you can't do that. You must highlight the row one only, the first row only, to do the first one. So right click, let's try again, table properties, into the row, and you're going to click on the repeat as header row at the top of each page. Okay, don't see it on the screen, but if you print it, you will see it. If we're going to do the other one about not allowing it to break across the page, we're going to right click and highlight at the same time, right in the corner, table properties, and we're not going to allow the table to break across the page. And if we OK, what should happen is that's moved down to here so that it stays in one place and not split. The other thing to look at are the we look at the cell margins. So if we go into a cell and right click table properties, in the cell area under the options, they have this feature. In the diagnostic test, you'll get an example of this. And what it is if they want you to just do a particular row, like the top row, so if I just cancel that and go out, We just want the top row, and then I go into table properties and into cell tab options. If I take that out, I can make the top row 1.2. If that's on, then it's all going to be 1.2. Okay, so make sure that you leave that off. You're just applying it to that. And OK, and OK. And then you can see I've just done something that's like a bit exaggerated. So if you're going into table properties, into cell alignment, you've got that option there. Make sure that if it's the whole table, tick it on. If not, just leave it like that. And I think if we just come out of here and we go into layout, there's a cell option there. That's another way of going in and another way of getting to that area there. So just be aware of it, that you have to drill down again into options, and you'll have a little bit of a practice of that when it comes to diagnostic tests. So that's the table properties. I'm not going to save. And that's the week 2, the second part of week 2, sections 2, 3, 4 and 5 in total. So I did 2 and 3 in one video set and 4 and 5 in this video set. So I may or may not see you for the week 3, section 6. I'm going to do after I've done the week revision for week 2, which, remember, just to remind you, is going to be questions 1 to 13. Okay, so thank you for your time. Bye-bye. You can highlight the whole row